He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He just sat there, quietly, clutching an old backpack while the officer mocked him, kicked his blanket into the street, and told the crowd he was nothing. Everyone believed it. Everyone assumed he was just another man down on his luck. Until a single phone call changed everything. Because within minutes, a black car pulled up, and the man they all ignored was embraced by the one person who could end that officer's career with a single word. Before I show you exactly what happened on that sidewalk, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button with the bell on, because this story doesn't just end with justice, it ends with the shock no one on that street saw coming. It was a chilly evening in the downtown district, the kind of night where the neon lights seemed brighter than the stars above. Office workers rushed toward buses and trains, eager to get home, while food cart vendors packed up for the night. The streets buzzed with life, yet there was a corner by the bus stop that seemed detached from the noise, a spot where a man sat quietly, wrapped in a worn-out blanket, his back pressed against the cold concrete wall. His beard was scruffy and his clothes were old, but there was something in his eyes, something calm, collected, almost dignified, that didn't match the image most people carried of the homeless. He wasn't begging. He wasn't bothering anyone. He just sat there, a small backpack at his side, as if simply waiting for time to pass. A patrol car rolled slowly down the street before stopping. The officer inside, a man in his 40s with a heavy frame and a face hardened by years of authority, stepped out. His boots clapped loudly against the pavement as he scanned the scene. His gaze immediately locked on the man sitting by the wall. The officer's jaw tightened. He didn't like the sight. In his mind, homelessness equated to laziness, failure, and, if he was being honest with himself, trouble. Tonight had already been long, and he was looking for an outlet to vent his frustration. He walked toward the man, resting his hand on his belt near his baton, and barked out, "Hey, you, what are you doing here?" The man looked up slowly, blinking against the brightness of the streetlight overhead. His voice was calm, steady, just sitting, not bothering anyone. "Officer." "Not bothering anyone?" The officer sneered, taking a step closer. "You're loitering. This isn't your living room. You can't just take up space here like this." The man gave a small, weary smile. "I didn't know sitting quietly was against the law. I'm not hurting anyone." That answer only irritated the officer more. He wasn't used to calm defiance, especially not from someone who looked like this. He folded his arms across his chest and shook his head. "You think you're clever, huh? Got some smart mouth on you. Let me see some ID." The man sighed softly and shook his head. "I don't have one on me." The officer leaned forward, his voice dropping into a mocking growl. "Of course you don't. Figures, you people never do." For the first time, a faint flicker of anger passed across the man's otherwise composed face. He straightened his back, meeting the officer's eyes. "What exactly do you mean by you people, officer?" The officer smirked. "Don't play dumb. You know what I mean." The words hung heavy in the night air. A couple of passers-by slowed their steps, glancing over, sensing tension, but no one dared to intervene. The officer's posture radiated hostility, while the man on the ground seemed determined not to be broken by it. The officer shifted his stance, planting his boots firmly as though preparing for a confrontation. His hand rested near his holster now, though there was no need for it. His voice boomed over the street noise. "Stand up," he ordered. The man hesitated for a second, then slowly rose to his feet, his blanket slipping off his shoulders and falling to the ground. His clothes were worn, patched in places, but he stood with quiet dignity. He kept his hands open at his sides, showing no threat. "Like I said, officer," the man spoke evenly, "I'm just resting here. I wasn't disturbing anybody." The officer stepped closer, close enough that their chests were nearly touching. He jabbed a finger into the man's chest. "Don't tell me what you were or weren't doing. You don't belong here. Folks like you bring crime, trash, and trouble. This isn't your corner." The man's eyes darkened, but his voice stayed calm. "Folks like me," he repeated quietly. The officer gave a short, harsh laugh. "Yeah, homeless bums, loafers, drifters, living off everyone else while the rest of us actually work for a living. You think you can just camp out here and expect people to feel sorry for you?" The words dripped with contempt, and a couple walking past slowed their steps. They exchanged uneasy glances, but kept moving. No one wanted to challenge a cop in uniform. The man's jaw tightened. He bent down to pick up his backpack, clutching it protectively. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I just needed a place to sit. That's all." But the officer wasn't finished. His eyes flicked to the backpack, and with sudden aggression, he grabbed it out of the man's hands and tossed it onto the sidewalk. The zipper burst open, spilling its contents: a battered notebook, a small Bible with a cracked spine, and a handful of folded photographs. The officer sneered as he bent down, lifting one of the photos with gloved fingers. It was of the man in younger days, standing tall and proud with a woman and 2 children. The officer chuckled cruelly. "Look at this. What happened, huh? Lose it all gambling? Drugs? Booze?" He tossed the photo back onto the ground as if it were garbage. "You're pathetic." The man knelt quickly, gathering the scattered photos with trembling hands, trying to shield them from dirty boots that passed by. His voice quivered, but it wasn't from fear. It was from the effort to hold back his anger. "You don't have the right to treat me like trash just because I've fallen on hard times," he said, his words sharp but steady. The officer let out a mocking whistle, rocking back on his heels. "Oh, listen to that. Mr. Dignity, huh? You think you're better than me because you can string a fancy sentence together? Newsflash. I run this street, not you. I could toss you in a cell tonight and nobody would bat an eye." The man froze, his hand still clutching the last photo. Slowly he looked up at the officer, his voice quieter now but unshaken. "You'd arrest me for what exactly?" Sitting, breathing, existing. The officer leaned down until his face was inches from the man's. "For vagrancy, for refusing to follow orders, for giving me attitude. Take your pick." Around them, the crowd of silent onlookers had grown a little larger. Nobody stepped forward, but phones had begun to rise, recording. The homeless man noticed, but the officer didn't, too drunk on his own sense of control. The man stood tall again, his blanket still on the ground, his belongings scattered at his feet. He stared at the officer, his voice now carrying a calm firmness that cut through the tension. "If you're so eager to take me in," he said slowly, "at least allow me one phone call first." The officer scoffed, throwing his arms out, as though granting some grand favor. "Oh, isn't that cute?" "Sure, make your little phone call. Call your drug dealer, your drinking buddy, whatever. Won't change a thing." The man nodded, unbothered by the insult. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a worn, older model cell phone. His fingers moved with certainty as he dialed a number from memory. He lifted the phone to his ear. The officer smirked, muttering under his breath, "Let's see who comes running for you." The man held the phone to his ear, waiting as it rang. His expression remained calm, though his hands trembled slightly, whether from the cold or from the weight of the situation. No one could tell. The officer, meanwhile, was pacing in a small circle, smirking as if the entire moment were a comedy staged for his amusement. He looked toward the small crowd that had gathered, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced mockingly, gesturing toward the man, "here we have tonight's entertainment. Our very own street philosopher calling his imaginary friends. Maybe he'll get us all a good deal on crack, huh?" A few people gasped quietly. Others shook their heads. The cruelty was too blatant now, too naked. But still, nobody stepped forward. Phones continued recording, however, their tiny, red lights blinking like watchful eyes. The man didn't rise to the provocation. Instead, he spoke softly into the phone. "Yes, it's me. Could you come down here?" "Thank you." He hung up without explanation. The officer leaned in, chuckling darkly. "Wow, that was quick. Didn't even beg for help. Guess you're used to being ignored." The man said nothing. He crouched back down, carefully gathering his spilled belongings. He picked up the Bible, dusting it off gently, then slid the photographs back into the notebook. His movements were slow, deliberate, as though preserving what little dignity he could salvage from the mess. But the officer wasn't done. He stepped forward suddenly and kicked the blanket aside with the toe of his boot, sending it skidding across the sidewalk. He barked out, loud enough for the whole street to hear, "You hear me? This is my block. You don't get to squat here and act like you've got rights. People like you, you're a stain on this city." The man straightened, his eyes sharp now, though his tone was still measured. "You keep saying people like me, but you don't even know who I am." The officer snorted. "I don't need to know. I can see enough. A bum on the street is still a bum no matter what story he tells." The words cut deep, but the man stood his ground. His voice rose, not in anger, but in quiet defiance that carried clearly through the night air. "You may have a badge, officer, but that doesn't give you the right to strip a man of his dignity. You can take my blanket, you can scatter my belongings, but you can't take away my worth." For the first time, the crowd stirred. A murmur passed among them, some nodding subtly, others glancing at the officer with growing unease. A young woman whispered to her friend, "He's right. This isn't right." The officer, oblivious, spread his arms as if to display the man like a captured trophy. "Listen to him, folks. He thinks he's some kind of preacher. Maybe I should start charging tickets for his sermons." The man bent down, picked up the last photo from the pavement, and tucked it carefully into his pocket. He then looked the officer dead in the eye and said quietly, "You've made a mistake tonight." And soon you'll see just how big the officer laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Oh, I'm shaking. What? You got some rich uncle coming to save you?" But even as he spoke, the distant growl of an engine echoed down the street, a sound that would soon turn the tables in a way the officer never imagined. The officer's laughter still echoed when the sound of a powerful engine drew closer. A sleek black sedan turned the corner, its headlights cutting through the evening haze. The car didn't fit in with the usual downtown traffic. It was too polished, too official. The homeless man didn't move. He simply stood still, his calm demeanor unchanged, as if he had been expecting this all along. The officer frowned, momentarily distracted. Well, well, he muttered. What do we have here? Some limo service for bums? The sedan pulled smoothly to the curb. The crowd's murmurs rose. This was no ordinary car. Its tinted windows glinted under the streetlights, and the sudden presence of authority could be felt in the air. The rear door opened. A suited man stepped out first, scanning the scene with sharp, professional eyes. Security detail. He moved swiftly to open the other door, and from the back emerged a figure that made the onlookers gasp. It was the mayor. Tall, composed, dressed in a dark overcoat, the mayor carried himself with the kind of presence that drew immediate respect. He didn't glance at the officer first. His eyes went straight to the man standing by the wall. In a single stride, the mayor closed the distance. The cold authority in his features melted as soon as he reached the man. Without hesitation, he pulled him into a firm embrace. "Brother," the mayor said, his voice thick with emotion, "why didn't you call me sooner?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones lifted higher, recording every moment now. The officer froze, his mouth falling open. Wait. What? Brother? The mayor pulled back slightly, gripping the man's shoulders. Are you all right? Did he hurt you? The man shook his head slowly. I'm fine, but he made his feelings clear. The mayor's eyes flicked toward the officer, and in an instant, his expression they hardened into fury. His voice rose, sharp as a blade. You humiliated my brother? You mocked him, threatened him, right here in front of all these people? The officer stumbled over his words, trying to recover. Sir, I didn't know. He looked suspicious. He was loitering, and The mayor cut him off with a hand raised high. His voice boomed across the street. Suspicious? That's your excuse? You saw a man resting and decided he was guilty of being poor? You treated him like garbage because of his appearance and the color of his skin? That's what you call serving this city? The officer's face flushed red. He tried to speak, but the crowd was no longer silent. Murmurs grew louder. Anger, outrage, disgust. Phones filmed every second. The homeless man, now revealed as the mayor's brother, placed a calming hand on the mayor's arm. Don't make a scene for me, he said softly. But the mayor shook his head firmly. No, this isn't just about you. It's about everyone like you who gets treated this way. Tonight, it stops. The officer's bravado had vanished. His chest heaved, his hand twitched nervously near his belt. He knew what was coming, but it was already too late. The crowd pressed in closer now, emboldened by the presence of the mayor. What had begun as a quiet corner scuffle had transformed into the city's center stage. Dozens of phones pointed at the officer, recording his every twitch and stammer. The mayor released his brother and turned squarely toward the officer. His voice was firm, cutting through the murmurs. Officer, what's your name and badge number? The officer stuttered, his throat dry. I'm just doing my duty, sir. He was loitering, and Your badge number, the mayor snapped. The officer hesitated, then rattled it off reluctantly. The mayor's security detail standing nearby jotted it down immediately. The mayor took a step forward, his fingers stabbing the air. Do you have any idea what you've done tonight? You've taken the uniform of this city, the trust it represents, and turned it into a weapon to bully and humiliate a man who was doing nothing wrong. A man who happens to be my brother, yes, but even if he were a stranger, your actions would still be vile. The officer's eyes darted nervously around. The crowd was no longer sympathetic to him. Their faces were hardened with judgment. Some were whispering angrily, others shaking their heads in disgust. The weight of public shame was beginning to crush him. The mayor's brother spoke softly, almost pleading. Let him go. Just knowing you stood up for me is enough. But the mayor shook his head, his jaw set. No, this is bigger than you, bigger than me. How many others has he treated this way when no one was watching? How many times has his badge been a shield for his prejudice? The officer's hands twitched as he tried to justify himself. Sir, with all due respect, he looked out of place. He didn't belong here. The mayor's eyes blazed. Didn't belong here. This is his city, his home. He has as much right to stand on this street as I do, as you do, as anyone does. The only one who doesn't belong here is an officer who thinks power gives him the right to strip others of their humanity. The words hit like thunder. The crowd erupted in nods, murmurs of agreement, and more than one voice shouted, "That's right!" The officer's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. He was drowning under the collective glare of the public and the fury of the city's highest elected official. The mayor stepped aside, motioning to his security team. Call the chief. I want this officer suspended immediately, effective tonight. The officer's eyes widened. Suspended? Sir, please. You're lucky I'm not having you arrested right now for harassment and abuse of authority, the mayor shot back. The cameras, the witnesses, my own eyes, they've all seen enough. The officer's shoulders sagged. His confidence drained away entirely. He stood frozen as the realization set in that his career, his reputation, everything he thought untouchable was crumbling right there on the sidewalk. Meanwhile, the mayor turned back to his brother, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. His voice softened, though it carried enough to be heard. You should never have had to go through this. Not tonight. Not ever. The man gave a faint, tired smile. I knew you'd come. That's why I made the call. The crowd, silent now, watched as the two brothers stood side by side, one who had fallen on hard times but kept his dignity, and one who carried power but still remembered his duty to protect. And in that moment, it was clear who truly held honor. The officer stood rigid, sweat beating at his temple despite the cool night air. His badge, once a source of pride, suddenly felt like a brand burning against his chest. Every eye on the street was fixed on him, dozens of witnesses, every one of them a living testimony to his actions. The mayor turned fully toward him, his voice steady but sharp, carrying the authority of office and the anger of a brother. You didn't just abuse a man tonight. You abused the trust of this city. You thought no one would care, no one would notice that your badge gave you immunity, but you were wrong. Everyone here saw it. Everyone here heard it. The officer opened his mouth, desperate to salvage something. I I didn't know who he was. If I had known he was your... The mayor cut him off, his words like thunder. Stop right there. You think this is about who he is? You think he only deserves respect because he's my brother? That's the problem, officer. You never should have needed to know his name. Every man, woman, and child in this city deserves dignity, whether they live in a mansion or sleep on a sidewalk. The crowd erupted in murmurs of approval. Someone shouted, "That's right!" Another voice added, "Hold him accountable." The officer's composure cracked further. He took a half step back, his eyes darting between the mayor, the crowd, and the cameras pointed squarely at him. He could see his career evaporating in real time. The mayor stepped closer, his tone quieter now, but even more dangerous. You mocked him. You rifled through his belongings. You scattered his photos on the ground like trash. You even mocked the life he once had. Tell me, what kind of man hides behind a badge to step on those who already have so little? The officer swallowed hard, his throat dry, but no words came. His silence was an admission. The mayor's security detail stepped in now, one of them holding a phone. "Chief's on the line," the agent said. The mayor nodded, taking the phone. His words were short, sharp, and final. "Effective immediately. Suspend Officer Daniels. Full review. Internal Affairs will have everything they need. The videos alone will speak louder than any report." He handed the phone back and turned once more to the disgraced officer. "You're done here. Leave your badge with my team. You'll be escorted off duty tonight." A collective gasp rolled through the crowd. The officer's lips trembled. He fumbled at his chest, unclipped the badge, and placed it reluctantly into the hand of the waiting agent. The clink of metal in the man's palm was louder than the officer's shallow breaths. The mayor addressed the crowd now, raising his voice. "Let this be a message. This city will not tolerate prejudice. It will not tolerate cruelty masquerading as law enforcement. Not while I am mayor." Cheers. An applause broke out, a wave of sound rolling down the block. The officer stood frozen, humiliated, while bystanders raised their phones higher, capturing every angle of his downfall. The mayor turned back to his brother, his expression softening again. He placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "Come with me. You've been through enough tonight." The man gave a faint smile, his voice quiet. "You didn't just stand up for me. You stood up for everyone who can't fight back." The mayor nodded, eyes glistening with restrained emotion. "And I'll keep doing it. As long as I hold this office, no one like him will get away with this." The officer, stripped of his authority, watched as the brothers walked away together, one carrying power, the other carrying dignity that no humiliation could erase. And the crowd parted for them, their applause still echoing, their phones still recording the moment justice was served in the open where everyone could see. The air was electric, charged with the aftershocks of the confrontation. The crowd, though beginning to disperse, left behind the unmistakable weight of judgment on the disgraced officer. Every recording, every whisper would spread across the city by morning. A second patrol car arrived, its lights flashing red and blue across the concrete walls. Two younger officers stepped out, confusion etched on their faces, until the mayor's security detail explained the situation. With no hesitation, They approached their colleague, now stripped of his badge and authority, and stood on either side of him. "Come on, Daniels," one of them muttered, his tone lacking sympathy. "Let's get this over with." The officer lowered his head, avoiding the stares of the crowd, and climbed into the back seat of the patrol car. The door shut with a heavy thud that sounded like the final nail sealing his career's coffin. The car pulled away, leaving silence in its wake. The mayor turned back to his brother, the tension in his shoulders finally easing. "It's done," he said quietly. "He won't bother anyone again." His brother nodded, though his eyes drifted toward the ground where his belongings still lay scattered. Slowly he bent down, picking up the worn notebook and slipping it into his bag. The mayor stooped to help, retrieving the old Bible and placing it carefully into his brother's hands. "You kept this all these years?" the mayor asked softly. His brother gave a small smile. "It reminded me who I was when the world tried to tell me I was nothing." For a moment, the mayor's stern mask cracked, his voice caught with restrained emotion. "You're not nothing. You're my blood. You always will be." The man slipped the Bible into his bag and straightened. "I didn't want your position to protect me. I wanted to live quietly. But tonight showed me something. Sometimes silence only feeds the ones who abuse power." The mayor nodded slowly, his gaze firm. "Then tonight, your silence ended. Everyone here saw what he tried to do, and everyone here saw it fail." The two brothers stood side by side, a quiet bond between them that no humiliation could break. Around them, the last of the crowd began to drift away, murmuring about what they'd just witnessed, sharing it already with the world beyond this street. As the mayor guided his brother toward the waiting car, one thought lingered in the night air. That power may wear a badge, but true respect is earned in how you treat the most vulnerable among you. So, what do you think? Did that officer deserve to lose his career over how he treated the mayor's brother? And if you had been standing in that crowd, would you have stepped in or stayed silent? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I'll be reading them. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the story. Subscribe with the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's upload. And share this video with your friends so more people can see it. Check out the other stories now appearing on your screen. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new video.